What's going on, everybody? Oh, that's how you start the other videos. Welcome on to the show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape, sort of, still under construction. We don't have a good way to put it for you, but we are here. Not an April Fool's Day joke that we are live, not a promise that we have a plan for the future, but it is me, RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys, and him, Brandon Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation, BLG. Happy April Fools.
Well, technically, this is an emergency podcast episode, one that I had talked to you about before the event that prompted it transpired. I was like, does this warrant an NFC East mixtape? We also threw it out to some of the listeners after the fact of this thing happened, but obviously we're going to do it no matter what. That was just for grandstanding and posturing to trick you into thinking you actually had a say in that case. RJ, a special time to be here because we've only done so many of these in history. Obviously, I think Carson Wentz to the NFC East was a big one.
Not to the NFC East. Carson Wentz, was it back to the NFC East?
Return to the NFC East.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, yeah. I think that was the only one.
I think there might have been one more, but the listeners can let us know if that's the case. Anyway, should be a good show.
Speaking of the listeners, hello to Mr. Gowton. Your dad says, hi, RJ and BLG. Put my name first. Just saying. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Reverse alphabetical order.
I do want to say, I was going to ask you, we don't have a ton of time. We have an hour. But I was going to ask you for like a great April Fool's Day prank or something you've pulled on someone. And mine isn't great, but it does involve my parents. Like in 2011, I called my parents and I did it the day before because this was when like it was starting to be cool to do it the day before. So you would actually trick people.
That's not how it works.
I told them that I had sent an application and I'd gotten a call to go do an in-person interview to be on The Real World. And I anticipated that they were going to be like, absolutely not. You know, there's no way that you're going to do this, whatever. And instead, your dad said that your mom is there too. We're just two dudes talking with your parents watching at this fun time. But anyway, speaking of my parents, instead of reacting that way, they were like, oh my gosh, we're so proud of you. And I was just so bummed. I was so pissed off that because I wanted them to freak out and get mad, but that didn't happen. So shout out to me.
I think I've heard you tell that on another podcast.
I retell stories a lot. My wife tells me that a lot. So.
Well, yeah, but I think that's okay. You can't just assume everyone listening to this podcast is listening to every single podcast we've ever done. Plenty of podcasts I listen to tell the stories over. And sometimes I like hearing them again because sometimes there could be an additional detail they didn't include before. Or why not? Anyway, I can't think of a good one that I pulled off the top of my head, but I do remember one that like sticks out that happened to me where maybe this is like, let's say 5th or 6th grade or so. And one of the kids I used to sit with like at the lunch table at the time, I think you just sat with your class. You didn't really get a pick. And this kid wasn't like a bad kid, but he did pull a pretty diabolical prank. And harmless mostly, that he took Oreos and he replaced the filling with toothpaste instead of like because this is like when like mint Oreos I think were kind of big at the time too. So it's like, look, it's the new mint Oreos, and didn't even taste that bad. Obviously, they weren't actually good. Taste horrible. Yeah, it was a pretty like harmless.
The toothpaste, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like the real mint ones are obviously better than eating toothpaste, but yeah, I guess. He got me pretty good with that, so shout out to Joe Hanko, who did that to me once upon a time.
Not upset about your skills of perception as a 5th or 6th grader. Obviously, you don't remember, but I feel like a 5th or 6th grader reconstructing Oreos, they would look pretty reconstructed. You know what I mean? Like they would clearly be messy. And so that you weren't tipped off by the visual says a lot about your abilities to kind of scope things out at that.
I think he put a lot of like effort into it is the thing too. Like they looked pretty legit to me from what I remember.
Okay. Well, shout out to Joe. And well, Brandon, this was, I don't want to give you all the credit and say it was your idea because I feel like share a mutual sort of desire to do an emergency episode. I didn't tell you this, but I went to opening day with my dad last week, Astros opening day. And then we had our flight back. Get super complicated. It was crazy with rain and stuff, but it was super fun. But we didn't get to do the emergency episode last week. So this is kind of a delayed emergency. And what is the emergency that we are here to discuss?
The Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl again. No, sorry. We already did that episode. It is Russell Wilson is joining the NFC East, and Russell Wilson, who has been a long-time mainstay, a guest contributor, you could probably say,
third
on the
official
NFC
host.
East.
Really, you could
Third
you could
official
say.
host. You have his jersey, I think, still. I'm guessing you had his jersey at one point in time. At one point in time, I think we both said he is our favorite player in the NFL. So, wow, an incredible get for the New York Giants, the New York football Giants, who are clearly back, baby.
The New York still really bad at football Giants. Yeah, so I think you are going to agree with everything that I'm about to say. I've never said that sentence out loud, but Russell Wilson, because I know that we have some younger viewers, younger audience members that might be early 20s, and maybe you don't quite remember. Early Russell Wilson was awesome. Early Russell Wilson was super cool and was just a great football player. And anytime he was in the media, he was just like, go Hawksing it. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't as cheesy and as corporate as it sort of became. I don't really fault Russell for that. Like, he went down whatever path he felt was best for him. Good for you, Russell. Get paid, make paper, whatever you want. Like, it really doesn't bother me. Everything broke for him, I think, from a brand perspective when he went to Denver. I think we laugh about it a lot, but the Broncos country let's ride thing, like literally making his brand a thing is where it was truly the beginning of the end for him. I do think his sabbatical in Pittsburgh may have helped. That's a place where you can kind of go and remember that football is sort of the main thing. Turns out the Broncos under Sean Payton may not exactly be that unless you're Bo Nix. That being said, this to me is, if we look at the spectrum of post Seahawks Russ, and we establish the two ends as Pittsburgh and Denver, this will wind up being much more close to the Denver side, which I think is great for you and I as fans of the weird chaos that he has unfurled on NFL fans over the last 3 or 4 years or so. Also, we should mention, because we always should, anytime Russ is brought up, that Stats berated him, once upon a time in an interview.
Yeah, I famously said that Rob Stats Guerrera of the Gold Standard 49ers coverage, formerly of the SB Nation NFL show, interviewed Russell Wilson for a couple of Super Bowl something.
I believe it was ago. Super Bowl 55. The Eagles just won 59, right? I think it was the Tampa one. The Tampa, because that was the first COVID one where everything was virtual.
It's a great interview. Even like that still holds up, just because you don't see players like get pressed like that often, but also like in a respectful way. Like Stats was. And Russell like gave it right back to him, so it was really funny. And
he was still in Seattle, for the record. That was part of why Stats was kind of ripping him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
So Stats ended his career basically. So he had a little bit of a resurgence last year for a bit of the season there. Russell Wilson, I would say, by the way, I think the NFL's new Russell Wilson is kind of like Jalen Hurts. I know you won't like that, but I think he has kind of come up in that mold of a player who wins a lot, like has these intangibles. Has a lot of support as well. Isn't necessarily seen as like the one main driver of that team as like the quarterback as other teams are. In any case, this version of Russell Wilson, this signing for the Giants is just so weird to me from a standpoint of, I liked the Jameis Winston signing for them, because it's like, sure, you literally had no quarterbacks under contract other than Tommy DeVito, which, he shouldn't probably realistically make the team. And if he does, third quarterback. So you needed someone. You got Jameis for 2 years, $8 million total. Totally fine with that. But then why also sign Russell Wilson on top of that? I really don't get that. That seems to be a move coming from a coach and GM who are feeling the heat of the pressure and like are focusing on a little bit, probably too much, winning right now than they are taking the long-term view, which is their job, to be clear. But still, the ownership obviously shouldn't have them in those positions. So I think it's a weird signing. He's going to be the starter, right? Like he said so.
I don't think Russ is going anywhere where he's not the starter. Right now. Like I think that, we look at Kirk Cousins and we give him credit for being the like pioneer for getting paid, right? Like it's clear that like Dak Prescott took his playbook and sort of evolved it, right? You know what I'm saying? Like relative to, the franchise tag and manipulating and things like that. If we look at this sort of thing in that same way, like the mercenary quarterback who picks a place where he knows he's going to go be the starter. I think Ryan Tannehill is the dude who blazed that trail, right? In Tennessee, he was like, oh, Marcus Mariota, that dude sucks. I'll be their starter there soon enough. And it worked out for him, obviously. Russell is trying to do that. And obviously the Giants make sense as a team to pick because they don't really have an option at quarterback. And look, we bag on the Giants a lot. And I think it's all pretty deserved. Some of it is maybe you and I embellishing a little bit. That being said, this is a little brother move because they are going to let Russell retain or regain some of the control that he lost throughout his era in Denver, in my mind, at least. I was thinking, do you remember, I think it was 4 years ago. I think it was the year that Dak got his first massive extension, which was 2021. And do you remember Russell came out and had a list of teams that he wanted to play for if he was traded?
Yep.
So the Cowboys were on that list. The Saints were on that list. The Raiders, and I believe the Giants were. Now, the Giants made no sense to be on that list whatsoever. This is clearly Russ. I want to be in the biggest media market in the country, arguably the biggest media market in the world. And I think that if I'm Team Russ, that makes sense because it's not just relevant for him individually. His wife is extraordinarily famous, right? Like the Russell Wilson family experience can like really, really, really take hold in New York in a way that they simply couldn't in Pittsburgh or even Denver. Remember the whole like mansion he bought in Denver with the like 11 bathrooms? And remember the guy on TikTok that was like, I'm here every week until Russell throws more touchdowns and he has bathrooms in his house. That was such a great time. Anyway, I think this is that. And I think Russ may have probably known that Jameis was going to be the guy. And Jameis is the goofy, whatever, he won't be a real threat to me guy, option, whatever. So I'm happy because I think that you and I agree Russell is not good, but he's good enough to prevent them from being anywhere near March Manning territory in the future or anything like that. So sign me up. Plus, we get to have a lot of fun making fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, famous last words, but they're not going to have the number 1 overall pick if Russell Wilson is healthy and starts the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they might not even have that if Jameis does. Not that I think Jameis is like amazing, but I think he's good enough to like maybe get you like 4 wins, 5 wins, and that could be enough to not, have the number 1 overall pick, which really should be the Giants' main focus, especially if they don't love the quarterbacks this year. And apparently I was reading BigBlueView.com, and Ed Valentine was saying all the buzz coming out of the NFL owners meetings this week is that the Giants probably not going to take a quarterback, which is insane. They're kicking the can once again, which already was like dumb for them to do that last year and didn't get ripped enough for doing that. Like, I remember at the time they took Malik Neighbors. I was like, great. But people were like, oh, watch out, though. Malik Neighbors is good. I'm like, I don't care. He could be the best wide receiver ever. It doesn't matter if you don't have a quarterback. So absolutely, I love this move from a Eagles perspective because I think the Giants are clearly, I think, again, Shane and Dable are just trying to coach for their job, GM for their jobs and aren't really so much, focusing on what should be important for the Giants, which is actually having more of the long-term focus here and just instead going with this Band-Aid approach. But I feel like we're too far into this episode without you actually, inviting Russell Wilson onto the podcast.
Well, Brandon, the thing about the New York Giants is that, we're talking about the true Tiffany brand. Tiffany, I need to go Tiffany, get CR or something, especially now we're apartment shopping in Manhattan. I feel like I'm on Gossip Girl or something. Look, this is I've played for Seahawks and the Broncos and the Steelers and now the Giants, and I'm just I'm blessed. I'm in the NFL and I never I won a Super Bowl here and Mr. Mayor and I we were talking and said hopefully there's a Super Bowl one here, but I know that the game is in San Francisco. I won a lot of games there too, and so I really have. I'm sorry I've lost it. I feel like I don't have the same. I feel like I don't sound like him anymore.
I'm surprised you didn't mention the Yankees thing. That's what I've been waiting for.
I was getting there.
I played for the New York Yankees.
Well, do you remember he was actually they technically had his baseball rights?
Yeah. I remember seeing pictures of him in spring training or whatever.
He trained with the Rangers first, and then I believe they traded his rights to the Yankees. Baseball, you have 400 picks or whatever the case.
We need to see more of that. I was thinking about today because I saw AJ Brown posting Phillies highlights, and AJ used to. I think he got drafted by the Padres or something like that. He was a really good baseball player. Obviously, there's a lot of examples of that in the NFL. But that used to be a thing. Deion Sanders, right? Did that. He played in the same day.
Deion
more of the cross sport thing.
Yeah. Michael Jordan, not the same thing, but did technically happen. Bo
Jackson.
Yeah, the Dion one is obviously like the example. But I mean, yeah, like, and that's, I always think people are like, oh, why did the Rangers draft? I don't even remember if they were the ones who drafted Russell, but like, why did the Padres draft AJ Brown? I don't know. If it's your like 35th, yeah, if it's your 35th round pick or whatever the case may be, like, you never know. Like, what if he gets sick of football or something? Like,
some like injury that like, or like, something that prevents him, or one, like maybe like concussion stuff. I don't know, something. But yeah, absolutely, and especially with the universal DH now, right? Like you don't even you have a guy who doesn't even need the field.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love baseball, but I mean, the idea that like you're gonna like Kyler Murray, if there was ever gonna be one, like he was gonna be the guy. So like you're either a baseball player or a football player. Although I saw CJ Stroud
can play too, though.
Well, he did play at Florida State.
That's what I mean. You could have Jameis and Russell Wilson on the Yankees.
Wow. Well, they don't need any help. What's your take on the torpedo bats?
I don't know enough to really comment. It seems weird to me that it's like this new kind of, it's news with baseball being around so long. But
my take is I don't have a problem with it. I find it funny that the New York Yankees like did this and then like all of a sudden hit 1 billion home runs and that everybody's like, oh, it's totally fine. Like there's absolutely nothing to look at here. like that is the part that I just find humorous. But yeah, Russell Wilson is a New York Giant, and I don't think that he and Daboll are gonna work well together. Like you're right, Brian Daboll, Joe Schoen, like everybody here is, and this will sound really negative. I don't mean it that negatively, but everybody involved in this gazpacho, did I use the term correctly?
I mean, you're thinking of gumbo, but yeah,
that's a weak spot in my game. Anyway,
it's not necessarily wrong because you could have a lot of things in a gazpacho as well.
Everybody involved. By the way, speaking of food, you see Saquon's going to be on Hot Ones?
I did. I'm interested to see that. Yeah, okay. I want to see how he does.
I don't think he's going to do well. That's not
like when Embiid was on, like he didn't even like break a sweat. Like he didn't even, and Shaq did react, but Shaq is also more accountable.
You can't be as good at Saquon is at every single thing. Like you have to be not good at something.
I think he'll react. I think he'll be bothered by how spicy it is.
Yeah. Okay, so but anyway, Brian Daboll, Joe Schoen, Russell Wilson. I would even offer Jameis, Malik Neighbors to some degree. Everybody involved here is really selfish or has a really selfish motivation. Malik Neighbors is like have a legitimate NFL career, right? Like prove that you are one of the top wide receivers in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Russell's is reclaim your career, reclaim your spot among the NFL's like top tier quarterbacks, and prove that you're not a joke, that you were right in leaving Seattle, because you're still trying to prove that. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, I feel like it's pretty obvious, like keep your jobs, prove that you're worthy and legitimate and competent. So like, but all these things don't all go in the same direction. You know what I mean? Like they go similarly, but that's where like, this is a tough scene, and you're in a division with the reigning world champions, with the NFC Championship game losers who are locked and loaded and trying to be even better next year, with a Dallas Cowboys team that is a joke in a lot of ways, but has collectively owned you for the entire Dak Prescott era. Like this in no way, I love Russell and it's funny and cool and means a lot to the mixtape, but like if I was like a 3 out of 10 worried, like 2 minutes before I found out this was real, this didn't move me a single percentage point in terms of fear or concern about the Giants.
Absolutely. Slightly better maybe in 2025 again than they would have been if they would. A rookie could have been worse. I think the floor is a little bit higher than it would have been, but also the ceiling could have been extremely higher with a rookie than it is with Russell Wilson at quarterback. I mean, they're just desperate. That's very obvious, and their pursuit of the quarterbacks they chased this offseason. I think Stafford would have been, if they were going to do a win now kind of move, which is dumb to me, but if they were going to do that, Stafford would have been the best one. Realistically, probably they could have gotten. And I think they could have competed for like a wild card spot next year. And I think like I wouldn't just say, oh, both of the Eagles games against the Giants this year are like locks for them to win. If Stafford was there in place, I'm not saying they're a contender. I just think they would be like a 9-win maybe kind of team if they had gotten him, but they didn't. And then obviously they were interested in Aaron Rodgers, which is just really, I don't see that.
This is at least not that. Like if I'm a Giants fan, at least it's not that.
That is true.
And so
I think that was the worst case scenario. Ed was like banging the drum, like do not sign.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers.
2 things.
Riley, so here we are. Giants are still pretty clueless.
Didn't mean to bump into you, but I think your service was laggy, so that's why I thought you were done. But Riley DeCocker says, "Where's the podcast from of this at now?" We've been asking that question, Riley, for almost a year. So
pretty much a year.
Yeah. I I know that it sounds kind of lame to say we're still working on it for an entire year.
Well, we're not working on it.
Well, I mean,
there isn't an answer.
We are effectively working. You and I are effectively working on it.
We are efforting on our end.
Right. Rick Bobby says, what a
Rich
nice
Bobby.
treat. I feel like you've corrected me on this.
I just saw Rich Bobby last week. He had some very nice things to say about the mixtape, RJ, and
thank you.
So,
thank you, Rich. I blame BLG for my mispronunciation of your name. I don't think I've ever done the Mr. Unlimited part of the impersonation. It's always been hypothetical things that Russell could say, not things that he's actually said. So yeah, I mean, I feel like the Giants, ironically enough, are the new Broncos. Like with the post-Peyton Broncos, even though the Broncos were kind of those Broncos when they got Peyton. Well, in that, like, it was Trevor Siemian, and I mean, how many people did the Broncos roll through at that point in time? Trevor Siemian, this isn't in order, but Case Keenum, Joe Flacco. They brought Brock Osweiler back at one point in time. Like, this is just that. This is just, this is the new Browns super long jersey thing. And on some level, it's not their fault, right? Like, they, kind of try, but have they really tried? Like,
no.
Daniel Jones was not really a half try. It was sort of like trying to fulfill a prophecy.
Well, and again, last year, you had a prime opportunity to either, I mean, I guess maybe they couldn't trade up for Drake May, but JJ McCarthy was on the board. Bo Nix. Who else? They could have taken a swing, and they just haven't even taken swings.
I mean, I mean, on the subject of baseball, this is like a bunt where you got on base. You know what I mean? Like, it's not quite a swing, but you did get on base. And so
when you're down like 6-1,
yeah, like, good for you, I guess. And
it's like the 8th inning.
So, okay, we've spent 20 minutes talking about Russell Wilson to the Giants. I do think we should hit some other things that have happened. It's 11:24 Central, and I have to be out by noon. So, shout out to Tracy Wolfson. Going to have an interview up with her here on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel on Wednesday. So, I got to get ready for that. But that being said, I'm very interested to ask her very quick and a kind of a tease for anyone who watches it. I once heard her say in an interview, but the host at the time kind of ran over it, that at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, not the one the Eagles just won, the Niners Ravens won, that they didn't like do TV makeup for her or something like that. And she was like, "Oh, am I not going to get this?" And they were like, "No, you're only going to be on TV if the lights go out." And they said that like as a joke. So I really want to hear that full story. But that being said, this isn't in order. I do want to save the Eagles for last because I have the most to say about them. I think we have to talk about the Laramie Tunsil trade. Good for the Commanders. Like, good for them. Like, I respect so much how they're just like, yeah, this is the time. Let's do it. Like, who cares? It's just picks. Let's just make it happen.
Yes, I think that's a good addition for them. Although he was the most penalized player in the NFL last year. His contract doesn't have any guaranteed money on it after this season. So they're probably going to have to assign him to a top of the market deal, aging player, which is worth it. But I'm just saying, in the vacuum, I like that move. In the context of their offseason, I don't love the Commanders' offseason that they've had. And let me know if you think I'm just being too much of a hater. But I think, like, I get what you've talked about for a long time, and I largely agree with. Like, you have to take advantage of the rookie contract window that Jalen Daniels is in, so you want to be aggressive. I think you can do that and not load up on 31-plus-year-old players, which is basically what they've done this offseason. Like, who are their core pieces that are going to be in Washington for a long time? Outside of Jaden Daniels, like Terry McLaurin's 30+ now. Like, he's really good still, but like, they don't really have this core that they're building. I think this is my perception of the Commanders offseason. It's kind of like where I wanted them to be, honestly, if I had my druthers, if you will, is that I wanted them to think they're closer than they are. And I think they're falling victim to what we've talked about a long time here with like the Dez dropped it kind of thing, where it's like, right. They just think, oh, we pick up where we left off from the NFC Championship game. So we just add all these old players who can help us win now. And like the Javon Kinlaw, regardless, that deal, regardless of his age, is just like a stupid deal. And a sign of like he used to be on the 49ers. So let's just get him again. Like, let's get all the guys we know. I think they've had a really like not good offseason. I think Jaden Daniels is still very legit. So I don't doubt him. And I still think they're going to be competitive because of him. But I think a lot of these moves, like Debo is washed. He's not that good. And he was going to get cut. No. He was absolutely going to get cut. And like, I just think the moves that they've made this offseason is not about building a core. It's about thinking they're really closer than they actually are. And I would much rather them do this than like do something like the Eagles did in 2022, where they did take Jalen Hurts take advantage of Jalen Hurts' rookie contract window, but they did it by like getting AJ Brown, like a core piece who's going to be here for years to come. And I don't think the Commanders are doing that.
I don't fully disagree with you. I have a lot to say on this. One, who was the age? There's no AJ Brown, but like, who was the AJ Brown that was available? You know, like if
T. Higgins, you know, for all I know, they could have made a bigger play at that.
Right. If that, like, I agree with you, that would be better. But I also think that maybe they, you know, made some calls, checked in on things, and it just wasn't possible to do this in the exact way the Eagles did by building a core. I agree with you. That's the ideal way. Like, there's zero doubt. I mean, look at the proof. You know what I mean? That is the preferred way to go about this. So I think you're, you know, okay, plan A didn't work. What's plan B? Plan B is let's keep trying to tread water. Let's hope that to some degree we can pick up where we left off. We recognize that there is a better way to go about this, but we can't do that right now. No, we just simply can't convince anybody else to take our trades or whatever the case may be. So let's go Laramie Tunsil. Let's go Deebo Samuel. And it's like the surplus episode of The Office. Like, you've got to spend some of this money anyway. Jane Daniels is on that rookie contract, so you're fine. Again, I don't think they're A+++ moves, but they are still very different. They're clearly not acting the way I think the Cowboys, like, think about the way the Cowboys did after Dak Prescott's rookie season. They were like, oh, we're good. Like, this will just be this way forever. Like, we don't have to do anything. We don't ever have to work again. They have clearly accepted, okay, no, we have to keep doing some things, and they may not work out. But if I'm a Commanders fan, I'm still thrilled. I'm thrilled that they are taking chances and trying and making trades and getting a little creative. I agree it's a little bit of like chasing the good old days for some of these guys, but that's totally fine. I do think, though, that in the future, we may look back and say that one of the, I know this is always a weird way to put things, but one of the worst things that ever happened to them was that win at Detroit. That win at Detroit could have really provided a mirage for them. In making and making them feel like, oh, we're this good. Like, you had an amazing night that night, and Detroit had an off night. Like, this was the like classic, if we play them 10 times, we may lose 9 of them. Like, you won the one time, and you can't build your identity off of that. Like, you have to get humble every year. And I don't think they're not humble, but I do think that they're confident, which I'm okay with. Again, like, it may not work out, but if you're a Commanders fan, like, you've been on the other end of the spectrum for way too long, so this is totally fine.
It's 12 players they've added this offseason who are 30 plus, and if you include like how ages of what they're going to be at the end of next season, basically it's 19. Like, that's so many like players who are older. Again, they're not building this core. Like, it's not like, oh, they added a couple old guys. It's like, no, they're like, the foundation is old guys, and they re-signed Zach Ertz, you know, who had a good year last year, and Bobby Wagner. Like, but all those guys are probably, there's not good bets to make on all these guys who are older. Like, it might work out, sure, and they are trying, yeah, but like, it's about making good bets, and I don't think they've made great bets. And also this idea that like they're an up and coming team just because they have a young quarterback. Again, it is not only just all these old players, but like, it's going to have to be also relying on the draft to build that core. And guess what they have in the draft? Well, not a lot of picks now. They have 10 picks over the next 2 years. The Eagles are going to have 20 or something around there. Like, that's kind of crazy to think about a team that just won the Super Bowl a second time in the last whatever years. Like, it's going to have 20 picks. Like, so I'm just saying, like, from the stage of like, you know, competing now, the Eagles are very much competing now, and they have 20 picks. I'm not saying they need to have that many, but my point is, like, they have all these aging players. It's not going to be just like, oh, well, we're going to build a core through the draft. They don't have draft picks now. So I don't know, man. I just think they've had a little bit of a smelling themselves too much offseason.
It's 2 and 8 years for the Eagles, for anyone who gets dumb and tries to subtract 2017 from 2024. It's just, look, there's no one giving more flowers to the Eagles these days than me. I just want to be literally correct on how we evaluate time.
What kind of flowers? What's your, like, a good flower that you
azaleas.
Would like to give?
The Masters is next week. So azaleas.
Okay, there you go.
What I will say, to use the Eagles as an example, and this will sound like hating, but look, the Eagles just won the Super Bowl, and I have a lot to say on the tush push in a bit. But I think it's very fair to say that Jalen Hurts is a significantly lesser version of himself than he was in 2022 when the Eagles lost the Super Bowl, right? Like, he's as far as individual play, he's had moments. Like, I'm not trying to say he's been trash, but like, on the collective, he's been
not
nowhere
trying to
near.
Say the Super Bowl MVP is trash.
I'm not. That would be dumb. But that was like a 10 out of 10 year for him, right? Like, from a performance standpoint.
In 2022, yeah.
Yeah, 23 and 24 were like 23 was like a 6 and 24 was like a 7. The playoffs, maybe, kind of an 8.5 at certain times. So my point is like, and that was really fortunate. So like, it's never been that, right? Like, so like, if, to your point, like if you just assume like, oh, Jane, I bring this up all the time. And this also doesn't sound smart because the Celtics are reigning NBA champions, but it's like when Jason Tatum was a rookie, and I remember hearing Bill Simmons say like, this is the worst he's ever going to be. What? Like that, how could that possibly be true? Like, well, I understand like the logic behind that point, but so like, this is not necessarily the worst that Jaden Daniels is ever going to be. So like he could regress. So it is a little bit of,
he probably will.
It's a little bit of a house of cards, but I understand saying, look, we have a house. You know what I mean? We haven't had anything. We are the little piggy who built the house out of straw, but we've got 4 walls. We've got a roof. Let's try to go to sleep tonight. I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah. I just think it could be like a little bit of a wake up call for them next year. Not in a way that, again, they're going to be terrible and what they used to be, but like I think the Texans are like exactly what they could be like.
That I don't even think they can be the Texans because
except they don't.
See, you're lagging. See,
well, why not?
I blame your internet. Your internet is causing some bumps, but the Texans play in a crappy division. That's why the Commanders can't be the Texans.
I was going to say minus the element of benefiting from playing in like the worst division in football, but basically kind of just be this sophomore slump kind of a team as a whole. Like quarterback takes a step back a little bit, like Stroud did. Team as a whole. I mean, they added Laramie Tunsil. So obviously, they have a piece of the Texans with them that they added. No, it's not that important. But yeah, I just think they could be in for a little bit of a humbling next year. I think Commanders fans are, riding high, as they should be, after having some actual kind of hope and promise for so long. But I don't think that, I think so many other fans, based just on what I'm seeing, Hogs Haven stuff over time, is like, again, like this development for them will be linear, and that's nothing but room to go up from here. And I just think that is setting themselves up for a little bit of a rude awakening.
Okay, we're gonna get to the Cowboys and then the Eagles in a moment. We're going in ascending order this time. Just kind of worked out the way with the Giants. But I did want to complain about something. I have zero care about what happens with Aaron Rodgers or whatever. Something that is annoying me in a way that RJ gets annoyed about things is I've seen so many people. I guess Pat McAfee's doing a show in Pittsburgh or something next week, or there's some, like, obviously he's from there, from the area. So like I've seen so many people say, look, my theory, I think that Aaron's going to go to the event and announce that he's joining the dealer. Like we know, like we all can surmise the same thing. That's just what I hate when people present things like that as an original take. So, okay. I want to ask you about the Cowboys. One thing that happened. So I've been traveling a little bit. I went and played Pebble Beach. It was super awesome. I know you're not a golfer, but I think that even you can identify that.
It looks cool. The clips look cool.
It was awesome. While I was there, was when free agency was kind of happening. And of course, I was like, oh, yeah, the Cowboys won't do anything. And then they, in a literal transactional sense, did a lot of things. But that was also when the DeMarcus Lawrence thing happened. DeMarcus Lawrence joins the Seahawks. I'm curious for your take before I say anything. The TLDR, for anyone who missed it, DeMarcus Lawrence signed with the Seahawks. And in his first interview with like a local member of the media said, yeah, I know I wasn't winning the Super Bowl with the Cowboys. Your thoughts?
It's kind of funny that you're on the other side of it now, because before, DeMarcus Lawrence would just kind of say stuff, and sometimes the Eagles are on the other end of that. And now he's taking pot shots at the Cowboys. So I'm not surprised, because that's what he's done over the years. And you've even said that, like, that's kind of just who he is. He's going to say stuff. But kind of funny to me from afar, but that's about it.
My take is, and I don't at all want to besmirch DeMarcus Lawrence. And I actually think Steven and Jerry have handled this really well this week at the owners' meetings. They were asked about it. They were like, look, we think the world of DeMarcus Lawrence. He was an amazing player. That, that's the right way to handle it. And so in a way, I feel like this only made the Cowboys look good. Like, I think it's not like it's super. This isn't like a reverse cope, but it's super easy to pick on the Cowboys. You know that better than quite literally anyone on this earth. You know what I'm saying? And if you are the Cowboys, you know how frustrating it is when people do that low-hanging fruit, type thing. And so it was kind of not cool for DeMarcus Lawrence to, in his first opportunity, and say that. And it was so unnecessary. Like, it really was not a great look for DeMar. And okay, maybe it didn't make the Cowboys look good, but I don't think it was the dunk, on the Cowboys that some people thought it was. It was just kind of like what did DeMarcus Lawrence get out of that? Because also to be like, yeah, they're such losers. They haven't been able to win anything forever. From a player who was there for a decade is kind of strange. Like,
yeah, it's more of just the funny of seeing like DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, like beefing with each other after being on the same side for so long.
So the other thing is there were some Cowboys fans, and look, I was playing on the most beautiful golf course in the world while this was happening. So I was maybe like I was on this like high as a result of that. But I saw that and was kind of like, that's kind of awesome that Micah is defending the Cowboys. Again, I recognize the Cowboys are a joke and all this stuff. Like I'm not here to, proudly wave that flag. But do you not want players like that? Like this morning, we're doing this on Tuesday for anyone who comes back. After it was announced that the tush push was tabled, I saw Lane Johnson tweeted, "They hate us because they ain't us," or whatever. That has to be very cool. Like that if you're an Eagles fan, that he has this level of pride in this thing. Like that is a cool thing. So for Micah to say, I don't care who you are, if you're taking shots at my team, like I'm gonna call you a loser. Like that is cool. Like I think that is cool. I used to say that Dak Prescott was a dream of a franchise player. Like he didn't step a toe out of line. He's a great ambassador for the team. Micah is a dream of a like leader of the pack, right? Like he is a perfect like lead warrior, like the dude who rallies everyone to run into battle. He's a dream in that sense.
Doesn't seem like the Cowboys necessarily agree with that assessment.
I'm so tired of this. Like and I'm not even annoyed. I'm just like, dude, we've seen this movie. Like you're gonna delay it and say the same crap and whatever. Like get a new bit. You know what I mean? Like just get it. If this was Jeff Probst, like add a shot in the dark, man. Add a beware advantage. Like these, we've seen. Oh no, somebody who was on the bottom won immunity. Wow, how's this going to shake things up? Like we've seen it. You know what I mean? Like spice it up a little bit.
So I think my take on the Cowboys offseason is that expected, and they didn't do like a ton. They did literally some things, which is more than they did basically nothing at all other than signing Eric Hendricks after he originally signed with the 49ers. And re-sign Zeke, which I did say was going to happen. I was a year off on that, but I did say they were going to bring him back, and they did. So I'll still take the win on that. I mean, I guess my wonder with them is what they're going to do, obviously, with their first-round pick as it relates to – I just think they need another offensive weapon. Like if it's another wide receiver, Parasiti, or if it's the Boise State running back, which I don't maybe think is the best pick in the way that Zeke wasn't probably the best pick like long term maybe, but could help them a lot in the short term, which might just matter more depending, capitalizing on the rest of Dak's career at this point. But that's kind of like what I'm monitoring, I guess, from afar.
I think my overall take is something I don't mean this in a dramatic way, but something changed a little bit. And I don't mean like, oh man, it's finally getting better. No, like at least we annoyed them into doing something. You know what I mean? Like I think we can take a win. Like I think that they were like, you think we won't do anything? Watch, we're gonna trade for Kaiir Elam. Now shut up. You know what I mean? Like, and on that level, I give them props. Not in that I think the Kaiir Elam trade or the Kenneth Murray trade are like big time difference making.
Well, those are like the Brandon Cooks kind of deal and Stephon Gilmore, except with younger players.
Yeah, they're not as notable household names, but those happened a day after the compensatory picks were announced, and they involved compensatory picks. So I gave them legitimate props. I said, hey, look, they got these picks, and in less than 24 hours, they were busy. And so I will give them some props. I don't buy any excuse for what people say about last year was like, I hate, and again, people present it as original, like, I just think the Cowboys were resetting the books, or I just think the Cowboys knew they wanted to get rid of Mike McCarthy. Okay, then fire him. That was so dumb. Like, that's the dumbest possible theory.
We're just going to throw a whole season away.
It's stupid. Anyway, I don't mean to relitigate all the conversations we had a year ago. That being said, I do think that they, for whatever reason, are consciously acting different. That doesn't mean the results will be great, but so I will give them the bar is very, very, very low, but they are over it at the moment. Now they continue to say stupid things. This week alone, Stephen Jones came out on Sunday. I don't know if you saw this and said, obviously the Micah contract is a big old thing, and I want to get to the Eagles. We don't have a ton of time, so let's wrap this up here, or wrap up here with this. Said, we put zero credence or credibility into people saying we wait too long, beyond the fact that nothing but all of the evidence proves that you wait too long. I don't know if you saw this. Stephen Jones himself a few years ago was asked by NBC5's Pat Doney what his biggest regret was. Not just like a regret or a mistake. He was like, oh yeah, we probably should have paid Dak the first time. That would have been smart. So these dudes just and look, they have calloused me so much that I'm not as upset as I would have been in years past, but it's like, just shut up, just stop talking, just for fun. And honestly, and look, this is representative of the situation. Things are most at peace when Brian Schottenheimer is speaking. When Brian Schottenheimer is speaking, it's just ball. It's just football. It's just telling us what kind of football team they want to be. That's how I want this to be for the next 6 months.
I kind of forgot that Brian Schottenheimer was Russ's offensive coordinator on the Seahawks.
Tyler Lockett too. He's been thrown out a lot. Tyler Lockett.
Dak's first playoff win, where the Seahawks, for whatever reason, just tried to run it, even though the running game wasn't working, and just wouldn't throw with Russ. And when they did, it would actually work, and then they would just go away from it instantly.
You know that Jalen Hurts' first playoff win was against Daniel Jones, right? Like, you know.
You like this. You like to bring this up.
I'm just like.
Jalen Hurts, who won the Super Bowl MVP, minor detail, just went through, because you brought that up in the past as a way to try to poke holes in his playoff resume. You can't poke holes in this run. Like, the quarterbacks he went up against in this run.
No one's poking holes in this run. That would be stupid.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, that used to be your argument, but now you can't even say that because he goes up against Love, Stafford, Daniels, and Mahomes, and boom. Anyway.
Again, I'm not poking holes in that, but I'm saying, like, you're specifically choosing Dak's first playoff win and ignoring that he also beat Tom Brady in a playoff.
My point wasn't about Dak's playoff win. Also, to take a victory lap about the 7-9 or whatever Buccaneers.
Jalen Hurts lost to those Bucs. That same Bucs team in the playoffs.
No, they didn't.
Yes,
that was a year before. That was a year before.
But, okay, maybe not the
Brady wasn't as cooked. Anyway,
okay. I want to get to the Eagles, and I wanted to say
wait, hold on. Well, one last thing. That wasn't the point. I wasn't talking about Dak's first playoff win. I was talking about, like, it was Brian Schottenheimer who was that guy, and now he's just like the Cowboys head coach. Like, oh yeah, okay, great, nice, good luck.
So, are you ready for us to talk about the Eagles? Finally.
Yes.
Okay.
So we should do the tush push first, because that's the topic du jour.
I think that anyone who wants to ban the tush push is a loser. I think the Packers are the biggest losers for I think some people have mildly educated takes on wanting to ban the tush push. Even those are dumb, to be clear, but at least there's a semblance of logic. The Packers is the most like, they beat us with it and we don't like that. And so they are the true biggest losers in my mind. And so, yeah, like, the fact that this should not be a thing because the Eagles are good at it is so dumb. And I honestly am nervous that the league is going to ban it and force the Eagles to go into this like mode of like, okay, let's find the new thing. Let's find the new tush push. And what would be very annoying about it, if I ever love football again, if the Cowboys stop being stupid, would be if I was an Eagles fan, I would never let anyone forget that the league was so scared of the play that they had to ban it. Like it would be such a win for the Eagles and for their fans. And so this is so stupid that it is even a thing. And like, beyond the million obvious reasons, like, you can do it yourself, like, or you can at least try to do it. Like not even trying and then being like, oh, well, it's no, quit being a loser. Go do some work.
I think those are all really good takes. Yeah, I don't have much to add other than, like, I think a few things to point out are that this wasn't a big topic last offseason, or at least to the extent that it is when the Eagles were collapsing. So you can't tell me this is not targeted at the Eagles at some level. It absolutely is. Like, it totally is at some level directed at their success at it and absolutely unfairly targeting them, which I just think is stupid and is not a good precedent for the league to set. I would say the same thing if the Cowboys are in the same position. Like, I just don't, there's no intellectually, like, factual argument. The thing we're seeing presented at the owners' meetings are like, and basically Howie Roseman, apparently, according to Albert Breer, was like, where's the data? Because the NFL had come out previously, Troy Vincent, former Eagle, had come out and said there's no data that, like, basically says the tush push is this massive injury threat. But now it's like, but what if it was? It's like, okay, that's not real evidence. The absence of evidence is not evidence itself. And they're like, well, someone could get incredibly hurt on this play, and we have to prevent that from happening. That's such a farce. That's so stupid. Like, that's not evidence. That's not proof. But to your point, if So I'm of the mind that I would obviously prefer for it to not change. Although even if it does, I still think they're going to sneak a lot, and maybe they won't be quite as effective, but they're still probably going to do it and still probably be like good at it because they have a good offensive line, and Jalen Hurts is obviously really good at it. So I don't really know what this is all accomplishing, all this discussion and ire. And if it does get banned, like you said, then this Eagles team that was already so dominant kind of has like another thing like to check the box off of, like how they would be remembered. They were, not only did they win the Super Bowl, they were so dominant they had to change the rules because of how good they were.
It feels similar to how when the Bills lost that playoff game in Kansas City, and they were like, "Oh no, we can't have this." Like, what if the Bills had the ball one last time? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It feels like you can't just like chase hypothetical. That's still not the best example. But I was thinking about like what it would be like. And at first I was so upset that I was like, this would be like saying, oh, well, we're going to ban sidearm throws or crazy throws when Mahomes is doing it. But I think the best example of chasing the injury thing is like, I find it very annoying when Aaron Rodgers was not sucking and would get a free play off of an offsides penalty. And they would like all the announcers be like, he's the master at this. Like he's the best. Like, no, everybody understands what this means. Like he's a very good quarterback and he's converted a lot of things, but like what you think you get my point. That being said, that's a way more dangerous thing to me than this, because that's like this play is now literally meaningless. We're not going to blow it dead. We're going to let something that actually has no meaning happen only in the event that it positively affects the offense. You know what I mean? Like you could chuck up a Hail Mary and someone could jump up and land on their head or something like that. So like the idea that it is hypothetically injury related is so dumb. And in the biggest example of history being written by the winners, I would have been 10 out of 10 annoyed. And Nick Sirianni's, Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore better vote for this thing, blah, blah, because that's really arrogant and really silly and really narcissistic to say out loud. But he won the Super Bowl, so he could say whatever he wants. Like, I mean, so this would only empower the quality of Eagles fans that Eagles fans love the most, but that everyone else hates the most. Right. And so for that reason, we have to stop it for the good and honestly safety of society.
Elsewhere in Eagles land, since we are running tight on time, obviously, had a bunch of losses in free agency. Not really shocking, other than the CJ Gardner-Johnson trade. That was unexpected, but I think that makes more sense from the lens of at least how I've been viewing it, in that the Eagles probably were going to extend one of their two safeties, either CJ or Reed Blankenship, and I think they kind of just want to go with Reed, who will be cheaper. And I think he's actually like all in the leadership council and everything. And I think they're kind of just going to go forward with him. And they're kind of resetting in a way. Like they weren't big spenders in free agency. They did a lot of bargain shopping. The draft is going to be big for them. As I said, they have 20-ish picks, depending on how comp picks play out over the next 2 years. And like multiple like day 2 picks as well within there. It'll be interesting to see who they draft, I guess, if they even stick at 32. Last time they're at 32, they traded out, which is kind of funny just to watch like the first round the whole night and be like, okay, they're on the clock and now they're not even picking tonight. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, they lost Paris Campbell. Watch out. He's the new, is it Corey Clement, who's making his way through the division. So,
although, Miles Sanders too. Yeah,
that's true.
Well. Great.
Yeah. I had a take on this. Is honestly what I was most excited to share whenever we did our next episode, and then the Russell thing happened. So I was walking the dogs one day, and I was thinking, because baseball season was going to be starting. Obviously, it just started. And I was thinking about the Astros and just whatever. And the Astros have, for anyone who hasn't followed, Alex Bregman left. They traded Kyle Tucker. They traded Ryan Presley. And so, like, the last real, all due respect to Lance McCullers Jr., last real thing from their era, if it continues on, is Jose Altuve. He's the guy, right? Like you think of like this era, this dominance of Astros baseball, Jose Altuve is like the cover of it all. You think of what the Chiefs have done. It's Patrick Mahomes, obviously. You think about the Patriots of old. It's, well, you pick Tom Brady or Bill Belichick, but it's one of the two. And I don't know what it is for the Eagles. Like like this 8-year.
Howie.
That's the thing. Like that's what's interesting. It's nobody on the field. Like you can, and even if you think, I was trying to think through all the major sports, and I couldn't really do this well in hockey because I don't know the league as deeply. But so the Eagles are the first team to win a second title if that makes sense. Like if we go from 2017 to now, over the last 15 years or so, teams who have won multiple titles in multiple sports are the Dodgers, if you count 2021. I know most people, feel a certain way about that. But the Astros, who I mentioned, you've got the Chiefs, obviously the Patriots, and in the NBA, you've got the Warriors. And so the Warriors obviously they had Clay and they have Draymond still, whatever, but it's Steph. And so like there's nobody on the field that is that dude for the Eagles, which makes them unique. And I don't mean that in a bad way or a good way. I find that interesting, like relative to all the other examples that we can conjure up. It's not even like college football where you look at like Clemson or Alabama and it was Dabo or Nick Saban or whatever. Like it's just the GM. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. And it's also like, I would probably say for, the Eagles' enemies, like annoying, because it's not like we need to wait Brady out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like we need to wait that guy out. You're not waiting Howie Roseman out. He's only also like what, 50 or something. Like he could be doing this for like a very long time. He used to be the youngest GM in the NFL once upon a time. So I do think I think Lurie deserves a lot of credit too, because a lot of what Howie can do is only possible because of like the leash he's kind of given to Roseman. So it kind of goes hand in hand, I would say there. But I think, Howie's obviously the one making the trades at the end of the day and making a lot of that stuff happen and is the expert in that regard. So yeah, I think Howie deserves a lot of credit for that. And really the only player who's left who was on both of those Super Bowl winning teams, there's two, is Lane Johnson and Jake Elliott, the kicker. So, because there was four who had 2 rings. It was also Rick Lovato, the long snapper, who's not going to be back, and Brandon Graham, who retired, and I think has a case to be remembered as like the all-time Eagle. Not necessarily like the best player who ever suited up an Eagles uniform, but just like the most, like you look up the Philadelphia Eagles in a dictionary, and if there happened to be a picture there with him, I think you could see Brandon Graham.
He's Mean Joe Green for the Eagles.
Sure. I don't really I know what you're talking about. I can't give you the background to totally back that up. But yeah, and so shout out to Brandon Graham, by the way, my favorite player. Great initials, obviously, Brandon Lee Graham, and 2-time Super Bowl champ, and a guy who was once a bust or considered to be a bust, and just ends up becoming like the most beloved player in Eagles history. So let's get to some songs, should we?
You can go first since you're super excited to do this.
I am going to add a song from the new Coheed and Cambria album that just came out last month. I would recommend giving it a listen. I think this is one of their best in years. Like they've had some other good albums for sure, but I think this one is like this kind of contends with some of their older ones. The album is called The Father of Make Believe, but the song that I like the most from that album is the 13th track. It's called The Continuum 3: Tethered Together. It's part of a 4-part like suite at the end of that album.
Continuum 2 on the album as well.
There's a 4-part thing at the end of the album there, and so that whole section is really good if you want to listen to that whole thing. But I think it kind of the best part of it is the Continuum 3 for sure.
Interesting. Before I give you my song, I just saw a tweet that Jerry Jones said Micah Parsons is one of 3 people who have his personal cell phone number. Who do we think the other 2 are?
I'm trying to think of something funny. Do you have any theories?
I don't think anyone.
Who's like a big water carrier for the Cowboys media?
I don't want to say that, dear. So
I knew you wouldn't say that. Yeah. But I had to ask.
I think one is
Ed Werder.
I know. I was going to say a former player. I just can't think of like who it would be. I think one is Adam Schefter. I genuinely believe that. Like one is definitely Adam Schefter. And the other might be Ian Rappaport. Like, I mean that makes sense. Wow. Okay, my song. I've been watching a lot of shows as well. I've been enjoying this offseason. Like since I've said like, you know what, Cowboys, you're a professional thing for me, and I still love you, but I'm putting you in your box for right now. I've watched a lot of shows. And something I've watched already, like I've caught up on it since the offseason started, is Only Murders in the Building. Did I tell you this?
I don't know.
It's really funny. It's on Hulu. It's got Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez are the main actors. And it's ironically enough, given who we are and how we are about a podcast. So that's the gist that I'll tell people. You can YouTube the trailer if you want. But Selena Gomez is in it. And I forgot about the song Love You Like a Love Song. That's a great if you tell me you're on the treadmill and Love You Like a Love Song by Selena Gomez comes on and you don't kick it up a notch, I don't believe you. That definitely happens. So Love You Like a Love Song by Selena Gomez is now on the playlist.
Excellent addition. And shout out to our friend who does the Spotify version as well, because you handle the Apple Music editions, but we have someone who also does the Spotify.
And we already shouted out Stats, but shout out to Rachel. Hope she's doing well. And shout out to Steven Serta. Hope he's doing well. And anybody else that we want to shout out?
Just everyone that could possibly.
How about shout out like Tom Cruise? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know about that one.
How about shout out shout out Steph Curry. He got mentioned by name a little bit. A little bit late in the show, but he did.
Shout out Russell Wilson, obviously the genesis of us doing this episode.
Bold prediction, unless he's already announced it, I think he's going to do a number change. I think we're going to get a different Russell number.
What number? Because is he only ever worn 3?
He's only ever worn 3.
Okay.
I don't know. He wore it Wisconsin. Or was it North Carolina State? Or
what do you think his new phrase is going to be too? I don't think he really had one for the Steelers, right? He
knew better. He didn't have the cachet doing for the Steelers.
So Deontay Banks has it on the Giants right now. 3.
He has 3.
So I'm guessing they wouldn't really want to change that. I mean, Banks has kind of been in the doghouse, I guess, at times, but I don't know if they would change that.
I think he's going to go number 1. No, Malik Neighbors says number 1.
Can't do that. Yeah.
They have a 0.
4 is open. 7 is open. 8 is open. Daniel Jones. He just takes Daniel Jones' number. That'd be pretty funny.
No.
I don't know the retired numbers, by the way. But 10 is open. 11 is open. 12 is open. You can see 12.
Yeah, I could see 12.
2 is 3.
Oh, and 12 is like an obviously 12 is probably the most iconic quarterback number in NFL history. And so
again, I don't know. It might be retired. No, 11 is retired, but 12 is not for them. And 10 is also retired for them.
I'm going to go with 12. That's my official guess. And I don't know what the phrase is going to be, but if I had to bet, it will have to do with the Empire State of Mind, with the song. It will be something about, I almost used that song, honestly, but I really loved Only Murders in the Building. So it will be like the Concrete Junglers, or you know what I mean? I think
he'll just say Go Giants, honestly. I think he'll make it boring.
I think that's probably true. Maybe something to do with the Big Apple. I could see that,
because you can't say Go Blue because of Michigan, right?
That is their thing, though. That they do say Go Blue,
but I just don't think he will say that, having played for Wisconsin.
What a treat if he were to say Big Blue for Ed. You know what I mean? That would be,
Go New York Football Giants.
No, but the first time he drops the football will be incredible. The first time, when he's at a training camp practice and he's come off the field and he's kind of still sweaty. He's be like,
honor.
These are the New York Football Giants. It's an honor to wear this uniform and this helmet. Eli Manning.
He's gonna do that I think the first time he's gonna do that is one of the interviews, before the game. I just think he's gonna be amped up, and I think he's gonna drop that there.
It's like Sunday Night Football. Mm-hmm. Melissa Stark's talking to him, and she's like, "So what are you doing? These are the New York Football Giants." Oh my gosh!
Just remember that we said that we know.
And look, I played a lot of baseball, so I know about the other Giants, but these are the New York Football Giants. I know one person who said that with such vigor. Do you know who it is?
No.
Jason Garrett. He would always. But you know what? I know I said that in a hating way. I really respected that about Garrett. I really did, because it's that's their thing. You know what I mean? It's like when people. I don't like America's team, whatever. It's stupid when other people try to take nicknames. You can't be like the San Francisco Football 49ers or whatever. That's the Giants thing. So I respected that Garrett leaned into it on their behalf.
It has a good cadence. I like saying it. Yeah, New York Football Giants. Just sounds good.
Yeah. Predict who's going to win Survivor as we leave.
Oh man. Damn.
I forget all their names.
I'm blanking on the names. Yeah, I know the names. I'm just blanking off the top of my head. I'm gonna say I do have a winner pick.
Oh my god.
Wow. I don't know.
Are you back? Am I back?
You were frozen. I guess okay. I was frozen for you.
So who's winning Survivor?
What are we on? 48, right? That's the number.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking up the contestants real quick. I know who they are. I just can't like off the top of my head for whatever give you the name. I'm gonna go with. I'm looking for the names. I'm not finding. I'm gonna go with Camilla.
Camilla.
No spoilers, but interesting player.
Camilla is
actually. I do like David too, the chocolate milk guy.
The stunt guy.
I think people are sleeping on him because I think people typically think that guy is like a big goof, like that kind of character. But I think he's a little bit smarter than they're giving him credit for.
He's growing on me. There was a bit where it felt a little forced, but we'll see. Okay, last question: who's going to win the Masters?
Tiger Woods.